Sleeves here with the Senior Pickleball Report powered by TNC Network. Let's get it going. Today in our People of Pickleball episode, we have two OKC Punishers from the National Pickleball League who are having one heck of a season together. Paul Olin, #1 in the world in men's senior pro singles for a lot of years and making a big impact lately in the doubles game, mixed and gender, and his partner Tommy Ho. If you remember the 1990s, Tommy Ho, man, heck of a player in professional tennis, played in a lot of Grand Slams, singles and doubles, now making his way into the National Pickleball League senior pro level. All right, folks, if you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel. Hey, check out all the links in the description and subscribe to that newsletter. All right, let's get to that interview with Paul and Tommy. All right, we have Paul Olin, who's been on the show before, and Tommy Ho, first timer on the show for the OKC Punishers from the National Pickleball League. Welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report, fellas. Good to have you.
It's great to be on.
Well, we'll start with you, Tommy, because Paul's been on the show before. I had him on with Matthias about a year ago, and we talked about their rivalry in the singles game and then, partnering up for doubles. And we got a little bit of background on him, and we'll have a link in the description if people want to revisit that interview between Matthias and Paul and myself. So check that out. But Tommy, you're obviously sort of new to the pickleball scene, but, a public figure. Obviously, you've played high level tennis, but talk about how this game sort of came into your life, because it's, fairly recent that we're seeing you play at the pro level.
No, it's probably a story that's very familiar to many. I was a COVID player, and Helen Wilhelm and Kim Forsyth in Dallas introduced. It took 4 or 5 of us ex-tennis players and said, "Hey, you 4 or 5 are coming out and playing pickleball." And I had no idea what pickleball was. This is 2020. I think it's probably March, April. Yeah, springtime of 2020, and they got us out. Yeah. And I'll say, like, right out of the beginning, I wasn't really sure about it, but as we played more and more, and the group really got into it, and and they were terrific. They really showed us the game, probably a little bit different than others who kind of go out there and they just kind of figure it out on a social basis. Helen was such a student of the game. She just really talked about the transition because Kim Forsyth was a tennis player, and so they could kind of get us kind of quickly aligned, and we fell in love with it. So we really enjoy it. I love to compete in pickleball, but I still love to go out and hit a lot of tennis balls. So
right on.
I love to do both. So, and then the tournament piece kind of came in this year. I'd say this year is the first time I played out of state, and then then having the opportunity to join the NPL and participate in the NPL has really been an eye opener for me to meet just wonderful people, but also be part of OKC, be part of Paul's team, and I've learned a heck of a lot about pickleball and through Paul, and I think we've got just a terrific culture in our team and a great team.
Yeah, you got a great owner in Carol, and obviously, this sport has brought a guy that lives in a yurt in the middle of nowhere, a guy that played high-level pro tennis, and a guy that's got a bronze star all together on a podcast. So that tells you a little something about what this game has done. Paul, obviously, you played in the league last year, and, you've been playing, obviously, in the pro scene for a while. And we see high-level tennis players come into the game more and more, it seems like, each week. Obviously, you and Tommy have had a heck of a season for OKC. So talk about, like, what's impressed you about his game thus far, and as a partner, too.
Well, first off, I'll start off as a partner. He's just incredible, such a calming presence. I always know he'll be there. And, I get wound pretty tight sometimes on the court, and he's been a very good calming effect for me. So his demeanor is just incredible. So I've learned a lot watching him. Now, being a professional tennis player, he's obviously, he has all the skills. and has all the shots. As you know, most tennis players coming over to the game do have all the shots. It's just a matter of putting them together in an effective way. Because they're and when I first met him in Daytona at a tournament this spring, I think it was, played against him, but even in the middle of the match, like, you could tell he was a student of the game and just wanted to get better, and is incredibly receptive and asks great questions. And, I knew right then and there that he was going to be really good, just from his approach to the game. A lot of times, in myself included, as old tennis players, you come to the game, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do it my way. Right. And then you quickly learn that there is a method to the madness, but they bring new tools and new tricks, and that's what's changing the game too. So, the old way is not always the new way, but people like him bring things, different things to the game that make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game, obviously, I was in Kansas City, obviously this year at PickleCon watching, and I was there a year ago when you guys were playing at the Chicken and Pickle. And I can tell, because I do a lot of paddle reviews, and I can tell just in that 1 year, the technology of the paddles has impacted, not only the open play at the pro level, but NPL and the senior champion pros as well, because I see a lot more of driving the third, dropping the fifth this season than I probably did last season. There seems to be more power in the game. So, Tommy, what do you, obviously you probably had a particular style when you were playing tennis. Is that style adapted a little bit to pickleball? And what are some of the things that have been challenging making that switch?
I think it's a good question. I mean, I could probably point to a number of things, and that's where it's been a lot of fun with Paul. Paul and I have had so many interesting discussions and philosophical kind of approaches to the game. And it's, I think the hardest part is probably being patient, because there's only so much you can analyze and try to theoretically implement versus just allowing time on the court, time to experience it. I think there was a period where everything was very reactionary. And then I went through a time, I think probably early part of the MPO, where things started to slow down a little bit on the court.
Yeah.
So I could actually kind of see things before they happen versus being very reactive. And so when you go through that state, kind of like in tennis, the anticipation piece of it makes a huge difference in being able to set structure and strategy on the court versus being reactive and hitting, and you're not quite sure where things are coming. And so in your other question around being able to transfer, there's definitely aspects of court coverage, and when you drive, there's just some innate kind of intuition on the court that I think tennis does help. Kind of the shadowing on the court that's just very natural. Paul played tennis, prior, played for Navy, and so was a high performance tennis player. So when we move on the court, it's not like we have to tell each other to cover. It's just very intuitive. So those pieces make a huge difference when you're talking about inches and fractions of seconds. So when you compare the tennis and the pickleball court, you're just dealing with a fraction of time and the fraction of distances. So those things matter a ton. So anything that you can do that's intuitive, in my opinion, becomes even more magnified on a court, and then creates even that much differentiation and advantage when you're out there as a team.
Yeah. I talked to Daniel Gold last week. He plays for Austin, and he's a high-level tennis player. I believe he played at Wimbledon, and he said the thing he noticed about at least the pro-level game of pickleball is that the holes that you think are there are not there sometimes. In most cases, he said, like, you see a hole and you're like, yeah, I can get there. And he goes, 9 times out of 10, that hole's not there. And I've watched Paul for a lot of years, and he's one of the greats because he's a high-level player. He's one of the guys you always see, he's on a podium a lot. And what I notice about his game is, even if somebody has his number for a while, he tends to, he adjusts. And it might be small, like you mentioned, little things. incrementally, but he's got a very analytical mind, and you can see that he's dialing it in and he's dialing it in. Paul, have you ever played a lot of tournaments with a lefty?
Not a lot.
Because it's different. Yeah. Was that an adjustment? Because when I'm a lefty, when people play with me, they're like, this is hard at first.
Yeah. I mean, I've played a bunch, with lefties in rec. I don't think I've played a ton. I've played a few tournaments with Dan Granat.
Yeah, right.
And I like it. I like playing both sides of the court. So, and I think that's what makes, I like being on both sides of the court, because sometimes you can get stuck in a rut being on one side or the other. So yeah, I'm very comfortable on the left. And then Tommy and I, we don't always play. Sometimes we go on the opposite sides, to change the flow or do something different. And with that, bring some different challenges, and we try to set different patterns out of that. But, it's something different. And, his forehand is just an elite weapon, so everything we do on the court, in my opinion, is to set up that weapon. So, it doesn't matter kind of where it is. We just need to feed the ball and get it to his forehand.
Yeah. And elite's a good word, because last year, Alex Simon, who played for OKC, lives in Las Vegas, and he plays a lot of practice matches with Andre Agassi. And he told me privately, he's like, I've never seen a forehand like this in person. Like, I didn't think anybody could hit a wiffle ball this hard. And so that's a nice weapon, obviously, to have on the court. So, Tommy, talk about, obviously the adjustments of you're playing in a league. You see some of these teams often. Paul knows a lot of these people well that you're playing against, but he can talk all you want prior to the match, but you're learning in real time out there. So you've talked about, as the season's gone on, how things have, slowed down for you a little bit. So maybe expand on that a little bit. What were some of the things in the beginning of the season that you were like, oh, this could be a problem, and I need to work on this, because this particular maybe opportunity or shot keeps coming up, or maybe you're in a situation that you find yourself in often that you need to adjust.
No, it's a great question. The thing I definitely can say with conviction that I didn't appreciate until I started playing with Paul in the NPL caliber that we're in is how effective the dinking can be. So the group that I play with in Houston, they are very, very good players, but they're in their kind of late 20s, early 30s. And it's there's a lot of disruption and chaos all the time. So, the dinking is aggressive. They're looking to earn almost anything that's even slightly to the sides and deep, and they're athletic. I mean, they're leaping, half the court. You don't even see them, and they're flying through the air, and they're hitting an earn. You don't see that at the 50 plus too often. Not like that.
Right.
So one thing I've become and I've appreciated is just how effective moving that ball around, even on half a court. I didn't even realize you could move the ball as much as Paul does on half a court. Like when I look back at the video, it's like a step and a half here and a step and a half there, and then he'll tack on a ball that's going about 1 mile an hour, and it just kind of pops him in the shoulder. I'm just going, which has happened. Right. I would have popped that ball like 900 miles an hour, and Paul's just like deep, and just like throws it up there into the right shoulder, and the point's over.
Right.
So I think that piece of it, I definitely have appreciated and have gotten a lot better, because I've taken that back to my practice and try to look for partners that are trying to move the ball around versus crashing and crossing all the time.
Yeah. Right. So, Paul, what do you attribute the success to? Obviously, it's nice to have a guy like Tommy who's got incredible paddle skills and elite forehand, but at the same time, it's a new team, somebody you haven't played a ton with, but yet you guys have done very, very well. Why is that?
I mean, that's a good question. I think that we've had a strategy, and we've done a decent job of sticking to it. And I think that's what it's about. Is if your strategy is good and you can execute it, you're going to have success. We've had a couple losses where I think the other team played better than us, but there were things that we could correct. And, in our losses, we recognized what we had to do, but we just couldn't correct it in time. But a lot of times that has to do with the opponents and how well they're playing. So, there's a lot of really good teams out there. But I think the success is, I think we have a good on-court relationship, and, we do our best to stick to the plan, and it's worked out so far.
Yeah.
Mike, I also think the contrast. Yeah, I'd say the contrast also, it's a really interesting contrast. We contrast each other really well. So in tennis, the complements are as impactful as the individual skill sets and experience of the individual players. You'll see that and hear that all the time at the top level in tennis, is the complement and the partnership. Paul talked about chemistry, which is massive, but also the skills. Our skills are very complementary. You come with one that's got the ability to go softer, hard when need be, and then people know when they're coming to me, they're going to see Mach 1 to 3 on quite a few balls. So it's like there's that contrast that really kind of throws you as far as timing. Like you can't really get great rhythm, because if you're going to one or the other, you're going to get a very big contrast in timing and pace.
Yeah. And Paul can appreciate Mach 3, I'm sure. So Tommy, talk about you played out, you're top 15 of the world doubles player, tennis. In the doubles game, for tennis, what does any of it transfer to pickleball? I mean, obviously a little bit of pattern recognition and stuff like that, but what does transfer?
The hand skills, I think, definitely make a huge difference. And then I came from a world back, where it was more kind of traditional doubles playing. I think in the last 20 years in tennis, you get a lot of heavy baseliners. People are not serving volleying, but all of us back in the 90s, we all serve and volley first and second serves. So the skill set and the touch and the feel, is definitely transferable. The ability to reset and being able to find angles, those pieces, I think we don't have to train as much. Also, when you look at the evolution, to Mike, what you're saying is seeing, and even in a year where there's more third drives, it does advantage. Like when people see the drives, people don't realize that I've hit 10 million forehands. So the technique there is, the compact and the technique piece of it isn't something that, you can pick up really fast if you haven't really had that racket paddle recognition. And I think when the paddles continue to evolve, those skill sets will start to magnify with individuals that have that type of stroke production off the third drive, forehand and backhand.
Right.
So,
did you play a lot of doubles in tennis or not?
Yeah, I did. As Tommy was saying, back when I played a long time ago, serve and volleying was still a thing. So by the time I got to college, my ground strokes just weren't what they were when I was a junior. So I turned into a serve and volley player, which translated to a lot of doubles. So I probably did better in doubles than I did in singles when I was in college. And a lot of those skill sets magically transferred, 30 plus years later when I picked up pickleball.
Yeah. So let's talk about the paddles, because obviously the paddles change, every few months. There's something else out. And I review a ton of paddles, and I talk to guys that are developing paddles who are tennis players, and trying to make paddles a little more nimble, I guess. Tommy, talk about I have no idea what you play with. I didn't really kind of look into that, but are the paddles to the point where you feel comfortable enough with the paddles that are out there today, where you feel you can do most things with the ball? Because I know up until a few years ago, paddles were probably still pretty cumbersome.
I don't know enough. I used Gearbox, And
which is a pretty nimble paddle.
yes, it's got a lot of stick, but I spoke to Joel and some of the key members at Gearbox, and the manufacturing and engineering side of Gearbox is what really attracted me. And like, I love the story behind the family-owned business and how much they put into the manufacturing and engineering of their paddles. I thought was pretty impressive and aligned a lot with how I saw the world. And so, their paddles, and this is kind of a tennis piece, is like the way I look at paddles is I want to use a paddle that I can maximize my power to the point I can't control. And then the tennis background probably gives, the ability, I'm speaking more generally, that I think that tennis players may have the ability to maximize power and still be able to feel where people would say, hey, that paddle's too hard to reset with. So I think I could probably use a 12-inch paddle and still be fine. I've used a 14, but so the power and what you can do, the spins, I think, to me are pretty efficient, but I haven't used the breadth of the paddle, so it's very hard for me to compare and contrast. Kirk and all these and the other paddle makers that have been around a long time. So I might be a little bit limited to the question.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, obviously you've seen the change in paddles over the last few years you've been playing. Do you feel like you can I guess, hit your spots better with the paddles that are coming out today? I mean, are they more nimble, more forgiving? And do you feel like, they're pushing the limits, or, where are you on that?
I don't know if they're more, I mean, so I've been playing with since I started playing pickleball. I'm currently playing with the Gamma Obsidian. It's 13 millimeters thick. So, I mean, for the Gamma paddles, the biggest change has probably been the carbon surface, which, every paddle company has that same surface or some variant of it. I think it's helped a little bit with control and maybe a little bit more spin for me, but it's all how your strokes are mechanized. Like, I don't have heavy top spin or heavy slice. I hit more of a flat ball. Okay. So, that surface really doesn't change my game too much. Some of the hotter paddles like Tommy's and the Yola paddle, it's just a change to the game. I don't mind it. I like it. I think innovation's great.
Yeah.
And it's selling paddles, which is good for the game. It's good for the companies, obviously. Yeah. And you have to make adjustments. The biggest adjustments against those type of paddles is the ball's going to come back faster than you delivered it to them. So, it's just an adjustment you have to make. I mean, we all know what we're dealing with. And with anything, there's huge advantages, but you can find the disadvantages.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Clearly the game's still evolving. They're still working on the ball. I mean, well, I'm really interested to see where the ball goes in the next few years. I think that's going to be probably a significant change. I showed Paul a ball when we were at the conference, and it was a 3D printed ball, but sort of it almost felt racquetball-y meets pickleball. It was kind of spongy, but dead silent, a little higher bounce. But we'll see where that goes. So, Tommy, obviously, I think when most people enter the world of pickleball and then they find out about the pro game, they're a little surprised that, one, there is a pro game, and then two, not only is there a pro game, there's a pro game for old guys like us. And then I would argue that people that are over 50 have more options to play pro ball in places than, the open pros do. I mean, you can play on the APP, the PPA, the Senior Pro Tour, and NPL. So was it a little bit like, it's one of those things, like, what do you choose? So I guess my question is, like, how's it been so far? Because it seems to me, looking in on the outside a little bit, and I get to interact with these pros, that the Senior Pro family is pretty cool, pretty fun to be around. They compete hard, they play hard, they have massive skill. But at the end of the day, they hang out and they have a lot of fun, and they know what this is. Talk about your experience so far playing, in the pro game, and particularly NPL.
No, that's well, it's been a great experience. To your point, I think that everyone does come to play, and so when we get on the court, you definitely have a lot of competitive um, players out there. And then off the court, I do think everyone that I've met so far has just been terrific human beings so far. So I haven't had I can't speak to playing. Is it Matthias? Matthias's league's got a league, and I've played a couple here and there, but NPL's probably been the most consistent exposure to a broad set of top senior pros that I've had an opportunity to interact with. And the people have been they've been wonderful. I don't know if it's just the people I've been around, because you don't have the opportunity to meet everyone, but this tournament, I'm saying hi to probably another dozen people that I didn't say hi to before. And so I kind of gauge it on progress and progression from the first event that I played to now. I'm saying hi to, it's probably multiplying by a factor of 2 or 3 each event each month. Yeah. So that's really neat. If I came in and all I spent time with was with OKC, which I love to do, it would be different, and I wouldn't be able to answer it as effectively to say that literally every time that circle of people that I'm very comfortable with saying hi and checking in with those individuals is growing exponentially. So that's not a factor of me because I'm more of an introvert. It's a factor of all the people that are in the league are playing for many reasons outside of gold medals, money and competition. Sure. So it's kind of like the tennis probably in the 60s and 70s. Wasn't playing back then, but from what I hear, it's a lot of comparisons to that type of, environment back in that day. So it's been pretty fun to be part of it on the pickleball side.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul, obviously second year in the league. Where do you see the league going? Obviously it's grown. It's doubled in teams. More and more talent obviously coming into the game every month, it seems like, at all levels. You think pickleball is in a pretty good place, for the senior pros at this point and where it's going?
Yeah, I think the National Pickleball League is fantastic. Something that you get with that you don't get at tournaments is just the social aspect of it. Sure. Even on the game days, there's just a lot more social activities. And that's what's great about pickleball. I think that's what brings people to pickleball in the first place. Not only is it fun to play, but just socially, it's very interactive and people enjoy that. And to me, that's the best part about NPL is you're meeting, so many like-minded people in terms of hobbies. And we all enjoy it, and they do a great job with the Friday night events. So I think everybody has a really good time. And like I said, I've met so many wonderful people that I didn't know prior to this. And even the people I did know from playing all the tournaments didn't really get to know them until now on a personal level. So that's been a huge positive. So where's it going? I think it's been a huge success. It's perfect for our age and demographic. And I think they will have continued success. I don't know what the big plans are. Not, I've heard rumors that they're adding teams. I've heard rumors that maybe they'll go overseas. I don't know what the actual facts are, but I think that they have a good model. And I think a vast majority of the people really enjoy themselves at these events.
Yeah. And I've said it, ad nauseum. I think the event, I've been to 3 events and everybody seems to be in a good mood. They seem to enjoy each other's company. And at the end of the day, they're treated like professionals, in which you are, which is a nice thing because, and it's different. I don't like to compare it to the PPA or APP because those folks are playing to make a living. And this is a bonus time for folks like you to get another chance to go out there and show what you can do. And I always tell folks to show up in person because my sister was at PickleCon and my parents were there and my wife was there and they had never seen any form of pro level pickleball. And they're all players and they're all pretty good players. And they were just blown away by the talent level of the players in NPL. And I always tell folks, it's one thing to watch it on YouTube or TV, but if you can get to an event and see what these folks can do, it's quite impressive to see, because y'all can play. And it's no joke, and it's intense and it's fired up. But at the end of the day, it's a good vibe and a good party. So before we get you guys out of here, Tommy, we'll start with you. Anybody you kind of like to give a shout out to, thank, and what you're looking forward to for the remainder of the season?
No, absolutely. I definitely would love to thank Michael Chen and Beth Bellamy, Rick Witskin on, it's hard to appreciate how difficult it is to, one, come up with the concept, but two, to execute the concept and strategy to make it a reality.
For sure.
It's sometimes what I would say is just remind everybody who's part of the NPL that nothing's perfect when you're coming into a second season. You're still growing, and you're looking to optimize areas, and not everything's going to work perfectly, but there are very few environments that you're able to create like this, where you have an opportunity to compete at an environment like this. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So kudos to all three of them, and thanking them for creating this for us. Carol's been terrific on OKC. I'd say in the beginning we had a mission statement, and I'd tell you, I thought, okay, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but when I look back, we don't have a great record as a team, but I'd say as a team, our culture is just amazing. And I think that's what's going to create, a good surprise here for the back half of this whole NPL season, because I think we're a couple games here or there from having a very different outcome. But the culture's there. I can only imagine if we didn't have that, what it would be like. But Carol's been a large part of making it very clear what she prioritizes of the team, because we all bring, as Paul knows, we all come from very different backgrounds, not just racket sports, but business and types of backgrounds. And knowing what Carol has prioritized and what's important to the team has allowed all of us to kind of bring to the team what's important that will create the cohesion and the connectivity of the group, regardless of our background. So it's really been amazing in what she's been able to create, and it's been a real honor and pleasure to be part of the OKC team.
Yeah, and I think that's what's great about each of these teams is they do have their own individual culture and the way they go about doing things and the way they're about doing business. And I've got to interview, pretty much all the ownership, and I've been impressed. Everybody, to take something like this on, what I call this league is somewhat of a miracle. Like, if you would have told us, all of us, that, there's going to be a professional league and we're going to add 6 teams every year, and it's always for 50 plus, and you guys get to play and get to go to all these cool places and facilities, and hang out. We'd have been like, huh? So I do think the overall feeling I get from most folks in this league is gratefulness, that it exists and that we're treated this way. In Paul's second season in. So any final thoughts, Paul? Because as Tommy's sort of pointed out here, anything can happen come championship weekend. So
yeah, anything can happen. Hopefully we get Beth back. And speaking of Beth, he mentioned all the leadership. Beth, Rick, Michael, they've done an incredible job. There's tons of people behind the scenes, like Beth's sister, Julie Weston, who just works her tail off to make everything absolutely perfect. She crushes it amongst many other people that are doing a wonderful job. And Carol on OKC has created, as Tommy said, a great culture. I've always wondered and discussed with other people, does winning create a good culture, or does a good culture create winning? I still go back and forth, but Tommy's point is spot on, that we work really hard and we do have a really good team, and I'm confident things will turn around here in short order. And we're all working hard as a team. So I'm looking forward to the end of the season to play, not for it to end.
Yeah, and you're right. This game, as we know, is a very, very momentum-based sport. And you can get hot at the right time. And the competition is so tight. When you lose by 1 and you're done, anything can happen. So I would not bet against OKC in any regard, especially with the likes of you two and having Beth Bellamy on the team as well. So yeah, hopefully get Beth back and go Punishers. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it. Nice meeting you, Tommy. Didn't get to meet you face to face yet, but hopefully that'll happen. And Paul, always great running into you and having you on the show, and you're always welcome back as well. I'll be rooting for you guys come October.
Thanks, Slaves. Appreciate the time. Thanks for doing everything that you do for senior pickleball. Appreciate it.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Paul and Tommy. Check out all the links in the description again and subscribe to that newsletter and keep up with the Pickleverse. All right, folks, at the end of the day, hey, you know what to do. Let's pickle.